On March 15, 2009, authorities found Richard Aoki's body in his Berkeley apartment. Next to him, he had laid out two neatly pressed uniforms. One was the black leather jacket, beret, and dark trousers of the Black Panther Party. The other was his United States Army regimental. He had shot himself with a firearm. The coroner's office told the public he had died from complications from dialysis. It took nearly a year for the truth about his death to come out. It took 3 more years for the truth about his life. Richard Aoki gave the Black Panther Party their first guns, 3.357 Magnum revolvers, 22 caliber guns, and 9mm pistols. He trained the founders how to shoot. Bobby Seale confirmed it in his 1971 memoir, Seize the Time. He described Aoki as a Japanese radical cat who had guns for a motherfucker. But in 2012, journalist Seth Rosenfeld revealed what none of the Panthers ever knew. The man who armed them had been an FBI informant for 16 years. From 1961 to 1977, his entire activist career. His handler, retired FBI agent Burney Threadgill Jr., called him one of the best sources we had. And the question nobody has answered is the one that matters most. Did the FBI know their informant was putting weapons in the hands of the Black Panther Party? And if they did, was that the point? Here's what the documents show. Richard Masato Aoki was born in San Leandro, California on November 20th, 1938. His parents, Shozo and Toshiko, were Japanese immigrants. When Aoki was 4 years old, Executive Order 9066 sent his family to the Topaz War Relocation Center in Utah. 120,000 Japanese Americans were locked behind barbed wire. Aoki later told his biographer, Diane Fujino, that he understood even as a child. The barbed wire was angled inward. It was not designed to protect the people inside. It was designed to keep them in. The internment shattered his family. His father became a gangster and abandoned them. His mother took custody of both sons and moved to West Oakland. The neighborhood had once been called Little Yokohama before it became a low-income black community. Aoki grew up surrounded by black neighbors, black friends, black culture. He joined a gang. He became CO valedictorian of his class. In the same year, he beat a student half to death in a school hallway. 3 days after graduating from Berkeley High School in January 1957, Aoki reported for duty at Fort Ord. He had enlisted at 17. The Army was a deal. Military authorities sealed his criminal record in exchange for service. He served 1 year of active duty and 7 years in the reserves. He became a sergeant. He became proficient in firearms, and he filled out a document that would change everything. The Army Statement of Personal History, dated March 29, 1957, asked a Cold War standard question. Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the Communist Party? Aoki answered no. For the follow-up question about whether he had ever associated with communists, he answered yes. Then he listed 8 names. People he had met in high school, including a girl he had taken out on a date. That form made its way to the FBI. Retired agent Burney Threadgill told Rosenfeld that the Bureau first noticed Aoki through a wiretap on the Wachter family. The Wachters were Communist Party members in the Bay Area, and their son Doug had been Aoki's classmate at Berkeley High. But the documentary record tells a different story. Aoki's own Army personal statement, the one where he volunteered 8 names to the government, triggered a military follow-up interview. That interview led to the FBI. Threadgill approached Aoki in the late 1950s, right around the time he was finishing high school, and asked him to become an informant. Here's what Threadgill told Rosenfeld that most people miss. Aoki had no interest in communism. He was not political at all. Threadgill said Aoki became involved in political activities initially at the request of the FBI. That is not an informant who infiltrated a movement. That is a man the FBI sent into one. The Bureau assigned Aoki the code name Richard Ford and the symbol source number SF2496R. His informant file was FBI headquarters, file 134 HQ10010. It ran to 221 pages. He reported on the Berkeley Young Socialist Alliance. He reported on the Socialist Workers Party. He reported on the Vietnam Day Committee. He moved through Bay Area radical groups like a professional because he was one. Then in 1964, Aoki enrolled at Merritt College in Oakland. That's where he met two students who would change history. Huey Newton was studying pre-law. Bobby Seale was studying engineering. The three of them became close. They were part of a political group called the Seoul Students Advisory Council. Newton and Seale founded the Black Panther Party for self-defense in October 1966. That was 1 month after Aoki transferred to UC Berkeley. Aoki was there from the beginning. He didn't just join, he armed them. Aoki later said in an interview that he had a little collection, and Bobby and Huey knew about it. When the party was formed, he decided to turn it over to the group. He provided not only weapons, but weapons training. The Panthers used those guns for their armored patrols of Oakland police, operating within a legal loophole that allowed the public carrying of firearms. Those patrols made the Panthers famous. Those patrols also made them the target of J. Edgar Hoover, who declared the Black Panther Party the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. And here's where the mechanism gets forensic. The FBI's own intelligence report, dated November 16, 1967, listed Aoki as Informant T2. His informant file from that period confirms he was reporting on the Panthers. One entry from the file is blunt. Only Richard Mitsui Aoki, Huey Percy Newton, and Bobby George Seale were fully informed on the organization's political philosophies. Aoki was not on the edges. He was listed third in leadership, the highest-ranking non-black member of the Black Panther Party. So the FBI had an informant at the top of the organization they had declared America's greatest internal threat. That informant had provided the weapons that defined the Panthers' public image. And that image, black men with guns patrolling the streets, became Hoover's justification. He used it to launch COINTELPRO operations that targeted every Panther chapter in the country. The FBI used forged letters to split the Panthers from allied organizations. They planted informants who encouraged violence. They coordinated with local police on raids that left Panthers dead. Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, Bunchy Carter, John Huggins. The armed image of the Black Panther Party was the pretext for all of it. And the man who created that image, who put those first weapons in their hands, was reporting to the FBI the entire time. Retired FBI agent Wesley Swearingen spent 25 years in the Bureau. He said the critical question is whether the FBI knew Aoki was arming the Panthers. Swearingen said the answer is almost certainly in Aoki's main file, a file the FBI still hasn't made public. They definitely would have had that information somewhere. Swearingen said the Bureau's own protocols required informants to report significant activities. Handing military-grade weapons to an organization the director had flagged as a national security threat would qualify. But the FBI won't say. Aoki's complete main file remains classified. The 221 pages released under court order in September 2012 were heavily redacted. What can be read confirms he was a paid informant. What can't be read is everything that matters. Seth Rosenfeld didn't stumble on this story. He fought for it. Over 30 years, he sued the FBI 5 times under the Freedom of Information Act. He compelled the release of more than 250,000 pages of Bureau files. The Aoki revelations came from a single unredacted line in a document where every other informant's name had been blacked out. For some reason, Aoki's hadn't. When Rosenfeld tracked down Threadgill, the retired agent immediately recognized the name. He said, "Aoki was my informant. I developed him." Threadgill described how they'd meet. He'd call Aoki, park a couple blocks away, walk to a street corner, and sit down and talk. In San Francisco, a retired agent named Swearingen noted Aoki could meet with a Japanese FBI agent in public. Nobody would think twice. Nobody's going to guess that he might be an informant, Swearingen said. In 2007, Rosenfeld got Aoki on tape. He asked him directly, "Do you know Burney Threadgill?" Aoki said, "No, I don't think so." When Rosenfeld told him Threadgill said he'd worked for the FBI, Aoki said, "Oh, that's interesting." When pressed on whether he'd worked for the Bureau or been paid by them, Aoki said, "I would say that's untrue." He never gave a definitive denial. 2 years later, he was dead. 3 years after that, the documents proved it. There's a counter-argument, and it deserves to be heard. Diane Fugino, a professor of Asian American Studies at University of California, Santa Barbara, published Aoki's biography the same year Rosenfeld's book came out. She acknowledges the documents exist, but argues the story is more complicated than informant versus activist. She points out that the FBI files contain no evidence that Aoki directly harmed any of the groups he participated in. She notes his activism was genuine. He co-founded the Asian American Political Alliance in 1968. He was a key leader in the Third World Liberation Front strike at Berkeley. That strike created the first ethnic studies departments in American universities. He spent 25 years as a teacher, counselor, and administrator at the Peralta Community College District. None of that was an act. And that's what makes this story different from William O'Neill or in any other informant case. Aoki wasn't pretending to be a radical. He was a radical. He was also an FBI source. Both things were true simultaneously for 16 years. But the forensic question remains. The FBI recruited Aoki before he was political. The FBI directed him into radical movements. The FBI assigned him a code name, a file number, and a paycheck. Then that man put 357 Magnums into the hands of an organization the FBI director called America's Greatest Threat. And the FBI used that organization's armed image to justify killing its leaders. That's not a coincidence. The Bureau gets to walk away from. The explanation is in the file, the full file, the one they still won't release. Richard Aoki lived his entire adult life between two uniforms, the Army's and the Panthers. When he chose to die, he laid them both out, side by side, pressed and ready. He didn't leave a note. The uniforms were the note. The FBI recruited him. The FBI directed him. The FBI's own informant armed the Black Panther Party. And the FBI used those weapons as the reason to destroy them. That's not intelligence gathering. That's architecture.